In today's video, we're going to look at authenticated scans by defining them, and then we will see how they are performed in Nessus. Welcome to Siberian Sentry. I'm your host, Cypherjack. This is my series on vulnerability management. Today, we'll be looking at authenticated scans. If you missed the video on unauthenticated scans, the link will be available in the description below. So authenticated scans, one thing we're going to look at is the definition of scans. We're going to look at some tools you could use to perform those scans. And then we're going to go through a step-by-step instructions on how you would run a scan in one of those applications. And then we will look at the report that it would generate. Authenticated scans, by definition, is a vulnerability scan that performs scans using valid login credentials. Credentials meaning a username and login and SSH certificates in some cases. How it works. The scanner logs into the target system, for example, SSH for Linux or WMI, which means Windows Management Instrumentation, or SMB for Windows Server Message Block. The WMI, it's a Windows control panel, and SMB is basically a Windows way to share files, printers, and data across a network. The scan performs local checks from inside, much like an internal IT admin or attacker who has gained access would. It inspects things that are not visible from the outside system, unlike the unauthenticated scan. Now let's look at some key characteristics of this particular scan. For instance, credentials are required, admin or limited user. The access level means it's an internal system level visibility. The depth means that it can see configuration files, user permissions, and patch levels. The accuracy is high, fewer false positives and negatives. Risk detection, well, it's more comprehensive. It detects both surface and internal vulnerabilities. Now, if you haven't watched the unauthenticated scan video, I do want to take a brief moment and look at the comparisons between the different scans of the unauthenticated versus the authenticated scans. So again, we've mentioned that, for instance, the authenticated, it requires login credentials. It's a full internal access. It has those in-depth vulnerabilities, risk detection. It's something you would use to simulate insider threat or misconfigurations. And so with the unauthenticated does not use login credentials. It's limited to the public, external, or should we say risk detection would be surface level. One thing I used in that video to explain it would be it's as if somebody was walking around your house, looking in your windows, checking the doors, sort of making notes on how they would enter the house, but not actually entering it. In this case, it would simulate an external hacker. And the speed is fast for unauthenticated. And while the authenticated is slightly slower, you're going to get a deeper dive into your network. And the use cases would be a compliance audit, looking for patch verification, internal security assessments, testing access control and configuration. Some of the software tools that you would use would be Nessus by Tenable, OpenVAS, aka Greenbone Vulnerability Manager. There's Qualys, and there's also Insight VM by Rapid7. Now, I want to take those software tools that I mentioned and let's do what we call the big comparison table. In this case, if we're looking at features like made by, cost, where it runs, easy to use, best for, and some of the coolest features across each one that they have to offer. So looking at the made by, Nessus is made by Tenable, OpenVAS is made by Greenbone, Qualys is Qualys Incorporated, and Insight VM is made by Rapid7. The cost for this, well, Nessus is free. There's a free trial, and then otherwise it's a paid service. OpenVAS is totally free. As we get further down the column, you will see why OpenVAS is totally free. Qualys is mostly paid, and Insight VM is paid. It's made for enterprise level. Where it runs. So both OpenVAS and Nessus, they will run on your computer. Qualys is cloud-based. Insight VM is installed, but it connects to the cloud. Difficulty to learn and use? Well, Nessus is fairly easy. OpenVAS is sort of a medium. Qualys is easy for big teams. I'll explain that in just a second. Insight VM is powerful, but it's a bit more complex. As you'll see as we get further down the columns, some of the features that it has to offer, which makes it a little bit more complex, but great to use. As for Qualys, easy for big teams. What's that mean? Okay, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of Qualys like a security control tower in the cloud. Big teams can all log in, they can watch what's going on across the network and work together to fix problems without tripping over each other. Think one dashboard for everyone. Next, best for Nessus is really designed for small to mid businesses. OpenVOS, as we see, is for learning and free labs. So it's one of those tools you could use to start to perform and understand how to do authenticated scans. Qualys is for large companies. It's a cloud-based, um, program that's used. Insight VM is for security teams at big companies. We'll see why in just a minute. The coolest features for Nessus, it's fast and friendly scanning. Again, OpenVOS, it's free, it's open. Qualys is fully automated. That's pretty neat. Insight VM is risk scoring and live dashboards. And so now we're going to understand a little bit more about Insight VM and how it works. And so risk scoring is important because what it does is it's how Insight VM tells you which security problems are the most dangerous, so you fix the worst ones first. It sort of helps you prioritize threats instead of wasting time on low risk issues. Live dashboards is real time, so it's interactive reports that show your network's security health. As a new scan runs or issues are fixed, the dashboard updates automatically. No need to refresh or rebuild reports. Everyone from IT techs to CISOs can see what's going on and act much faster. If I was going to give an analogy for these two, I would say risk scoring is like a weather app saying, hey, there's a 90% chance of a storm hitting your house tomorrow. Live dashboards is like a radar map showing the storm in real time so your whole team can prepare and respond quickly. So that's a look at these various applications, sort of breaking them down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little time going through Nessus, where I will take you through the steps to uh, perform an authenticated scan. And we're going to look at a report, which will help us see what kind of information it generates for us when performing an authenticated scan, what you can expect. All right, so here we are in Nessus again. This screen should look familiar if you watch the unauthenticated scan video. And of course, like last time, we're going to select the vulnerability management option. Brings us back to this dashboard, which has a lot of information on it. We're not going to cover it in this video. We would go to scans again. And we're back to a familiar screen where again, it's empty, but this is where your scans that you've run prior or you plan to run are set up here. The only difference would be if for some reason, again, your organization has it set up to purge um, anything from here after so many days. Uh, Best practices are again to create your scan, run your scan, look at the report, see what information is generated, what vulnerabilities, create your remediation plan, and then from there, download a copy of it in a PDF file. Then come back here and delete that scan because you don't need it. So we don't have that created yet, so we're going to create a scan. And again, we're back at the Nessus scanner, Nessus agent, user defined. We're going to stick with Nessus scanner again. We're still going to do a basic network scan. That's going to be our option for this one. And we're going to name it CypherTech CJ Authenticated Scan. Not going to use any description. We're still using the internal scanner. Going to select the local scan engine 01. There's the tags. Now we have to get our target VM. So grab that information real quick. Over here, paste it, and we're going to go to discovery again. We're still going to select the custom option. Again, this is assuming you watched the other video, turning on use fast network discovery. We're going to jump down to credentials. We're going to add credentials. So now we're telling it, hey, we want you to specifically log into Windows using the provided information and run the scan. There we go. It's already remembered me. Just going to put in the password information. So you'd put that in, you'd select again the Windows. It's going to bring this up, and the authentication method is password. You would have the option for other things in here, But again, password is what we're going with. We're saying, hey, we're going to provide a username and a password for you to run that scan. We're going to save it, save again, and now look, we now have a authenticated scan ready to go. Okay, it's going to notify me here of like, yeah, successfully you did this. And it's empty because we haven't run it yet. And in this case, we would launch and then we would look at the results once it's finished. This type of scan takes a little bit longer. So for you, it's going to be a second. It's going to blip right over and show a completed file. But for me, it's going to be a few minutes. All right, so now the authenticated scan is completed, and we can now take a look at the report that it generates. And now we can have something additional to compare to the unauthenticated scan. Let's see if it pulls what it pulls up. All right, so in this one, there's still no critical, but there's now 2 high, and instead of 6 medium, it found 7 medium, and of course the 1 low is still there. So if we see all details, we can now see what it pulled. And so the vulnerabilities that it found in the high is Microsoft Windows guest account belongs to a group, and the Win Verified Trust Signature Validation CVE. We'll take a look at those. The mediums are all the same with the exception of the additional 7-zip medium vulnerability. And then there is the ICMP timestamp request remote date disclosure. So this one, let's go read what it says. It says that using the supplied credentials, Nessus was able to determine that the guest user belongs to groups other than guests or domain guests. Guest users should not have any additional privileges. So what's the solution? Edit the local or domain policy to restrict group membership for the guest account. And we would send that off to the server team and let them figure out what they did. Who did that? And, course correct that. But in reality, I did go in and monkey around with my VM, and I turned off the firewall, for instance, and did some other things, ran some PowerShell code. So I wanted to see what it would generate. I want to check out this one right here, the Win Verified Trust Signature. It's talking about registry keys, and then you would just add an enable registry value, enable cert padding check, and then there's an additionally on 64-bit OS systems, you would again do the same thing. So again, if you ever saw this, you want to explore it, you could go to these links and they'll break it down a little more as to what's going on here. And then we look at the 7-zip, which is the additional medium that we got this time around. And this one is just saying, hey, your version it's outdated, and because it's outdated, there's a vulnerability that could be used to get into your system. So upgrade to 7-zip version 24.09 or later is what it recommends. And then your ICMP, you're low. So yeah. So as you can see, with an authenticated scan, we saw a little bit more, with what we ran. So it's a good thing. It's a learning opportunity for you to see how it finds things from the inside out that the other scan couldn't find these things. So definitely a very good thing. And so at this point, again, you would use that completed file to write up your notes for remediation. You would also want to save a backup of the file for your logs, for your files, and then you would delete this. Scan because you wouldn't need it anymore. All right, well, that is what it looks like to run an authenticated scan, what the report looks like. Now you can compare that to an unauthenticated scan. And next on our list that we'll be doing is a DISA-STIG scan, and we'll break down what that is. That's all for today's video. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell if you want notifications of future content. This is Cypher Jack signing off.